Last night, your candidate, Rand Paul, said that he would oppose the 1964 Civil Rights Act.
I haven't seen the interview yet, so I'm not going to comment.
Do you agree with him?
I haven't seen his interview. So.
But do you support the 1964 Civil Rights Act? It's a simple question. Think progress. Sir, you have no comment on that?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
No, I support the Civil Rights Act.
What about the Americans with Disabilities Act? Rand Paul says he wants to abolish that as well.
I'm going to talk to Rand about his positions.
And I'm not familiar with Dr. Paul's positions on those issues.
Dr. Paul has said last night on the Rachel Maddow show that he supports many aspects of the Civil Rights Act when it relates to the federal government, but he does have concerns about privacy, businesses being able to set their own rules and standards and make their own decisions.
Okay, again, not being familiar with the context of his response or his questions, I really can't opine as to his position.
House Minority Whip Eric Cantor, and before him, Senator Jim DeMint, saying they require further information before they are willing to comment on the civil rights controversy surrounding the Republican Party's nominee for Senate in Kentucky, Rand Paul. A number of other Republicans today were asked to comment on Dr. Paul and his views. The chairman of the Republican Party's Senate Campaign Committee, John Cornyn, said, quote, "I don't know what he means by that. I support non-discrimination of people, so I would need to talk to him to see what precisely his concerns were." Senator Jeff Sessions of Alabama said, quote, "I think America is better off that the segregation views are over and that," meaning the Civil Rights Act, "played a role in it. But if you take a more libertarian view, a stronger view of private party, you could reach the conclusion he reached." When asked if Senator Sessions agreed with Dr. Paul's conclusion, Mr. Sessions added, quote, "I don't support that." Senator John Kyle dragged me into it when he was asked to comment. He said, quote, "I think the two of them were having a bit of a good time, having a debate like you had at 2 a.m. in the morning when you're going to college, but it doesn't have a lot to do with anything." For the record, I wasn't debating. And 2 a.m. in college was usually way more fun than that. But Republicans generally are having a hard time today explaining Rand Paul as their Senate candidate. Surprisingly, even Rand Paul himself took a few steps away from himself today.
You know, what do you think you're going to get when you go on Rachel Maddow's show? That's the kind of questions you are going to get.
You're right, and it was a poor political decision. Probably won't be happening anytime in the near future. Seemed to have unleashed some of the loony left on me.
I didn't think he thought I was loony left before, since he announced his candidacy on this show. But then Dr. Paul released a written statement, which didn't help matters at all. He said, quote, "I unequivocally state that I will not support any efforts to repeal the Civil Rights Act of 1964. I didn't ask him about repeal. I asked if he agreed with the law, and he wouldn't say that he did. Then in his statement, he said that the issue was being overblown because the Civil Rights Act was settled law. Quote, "Sections of the Civil Rights Act were debated on constitutional grounds when the legislation was passed. Those issues have been settled by federal courts in the intervening years." True. Everybody thinks that the fact that private businesses can't legally discriminate is settled law. The issue is that Rand Paul disagrees with how it was settled. If it were up to him, he was arguing, he would have preferred that it be settled in the other direction. As the day just kept getting worse, in the late afternoon, Dr. Paul finally tried to walk his position way, 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 way back.
Would you have voted yay or nay for the Civil Rights Act?
Yes, I would have voted yes. I think that there was an overriding problem in the South so big that it did require federal intervention in the 60s.
And that is a brand new position. It is quite a distance from where he was on this issue last month when he spoke to the Courier-Journal, yesterday afternoon when he spoke with National Public Radio, and definitely last night with me. The controversy here is not because something has been taken out of context. This isn't him being held to account for essentially a misstatement or something blurted out in the heat of argument. As long ago as 2002, Dr. Rand Paul wrote to his local paper in Bowling Green, Kentucky, to chastise the newspaper for endorsing the Fair Housing Act, which prohibits housing discrimination. In that letter, he wrote, quote, "A free society will abide unofficial private discrimination, even when that means allowing hate-filled groups to exclude people based on the color of their skin." Despite everyone, including Rand Paul himself, now sprinting away from Rand Paul's position on civil rights, the fact remains that Kentucky Republicans have as their nominee for United States Senate a candidate who says that while he personally abhors this, anyone who wants to do this today is within their rights to do it. And the government was wrong to stop it when they did. Happy 2000sies. Joining us now is the president and CEO of the NAACP, Benjamin Jealous. Ben, thank you very much for being here. It's good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Crazy day.
None of this has worked out the way I thought it would. The argument made and then walked back about the rights of private businesses to discriminate. Was that part of the original argument against the Civil Rights Act of 1964 when it was first debated?
Yeah, I mean, that's why Barry Goldwater didn't vote for it. That was his sole reason not to vote for it. This thought has been insidious inside the Republican Party for a very long time, and these Tea Party folks, seem to be sort of throwing gas onto really old, small flames.
Republican Senator John Kyle, even the White House press secretary, Robert Gibbs, today reacted to this whole controversy by saying this is a 60-year-old issue. It has no place in our political discourse now. What's your response to that? Do you think that's appropriate, or do you think that there's an opportunity here to engage on an issue as more than just history?
This is very real. I mean, we had the Philly pool issue last summer, and we still get complaints about pools at the NAACP. We got real issues right now about the federal regulation of banks. We've got the Employment Non-Discrimination Act in front of the Congress and the mistreatment of people on the basis of sexual orientation. This is a very real, live issue. And, the fear with Rand Paul is that what he said in 2002, what he said to NPR, what he said to you is how he feels. And now he's very quickly learning how to be a candidate, and he's trying to, flip-flop. But he's been consistent over time, and that's deeply worrying.
Benjamin, I know that you are a veteran of these fights. Your organization is absolutely a veteran and a defining prime mover of these fights, these arguments, and these struggles in the United States. There is this issue about talking about civil rights versus talking about racism. At one point in my discussion last night with Dr. Paul, he said, you're trying to make it seem like I'm a racist. You're trying to make it seem like I'm a bad guy. I don't like discrimination. I don't like racism. I essentially just don't like the legal means that we've chosen to deal with it in this country. Still, in the way that I never accused him of being a racist, but a lot of the ways that people responded to that interview was by saying, oh, he's shown himself to be a racist person. How do you find that line and the appropriate language and the most inclusive means of talking to people about this stuff without them just shutting down into name-calling?
That's just look, I'm the head of the NAACP. I don't think he's a racist, right? Just let that be said here. At the same time, that's not the point. When you're running for office to make policy. And if you're going to support that viewpoint, which lets the most vile parts of our society come out and flourish with full force, use their very place of business to humiliate people based on who they are and what they are, then that's a real problem. That's a real problem. It's not about whether or not you have black friends. This is about how you're going to let people be treated in this country. There's a reason that my daughter doesn't have to pee in a jar when we drive down south to see cousins, and that's because the gas stations have been forced to let us use their restroom. We don't need people who say, well, let's travel back in time to 1964, and I would quibble with that part of it. No, man, look, Jim Crow is dead. It's dead wrong. Just get used to saying that over and over again.
Benjamin, for all that the NAACP has been through, I imagine that it must be kind of a head-on desk moment to have the Civil Rights Act of '64 be newly controversial again in 2010. I wonder if you've tried to have a dialogue with Rand Paul or his father Ron Paul, who has similar views on this issue. Have you reached out to them? Have you been able to dialogue with any of these folks?
I actually have a note on my desk to sign to him that'll go off first thing when I get to work. And it's just saying, look, I will debate you wherever you want to debate. Heck, I'm willing to fly to him and tutor him Just walk through the Civil Rights Act bit by bit. Walk through the Constitution bit by bit. And talk to him about what his responsibility is in this day and time. Talk about a head-on-desk moment. I mean, all week, we filed a lawsuit in the Southwest where they want to make racial profiling the law. Down in textbook where they want to kill the truth. Down in Texas where their textbooks where they're trying to kill the truth and spend $1 billion on a books full of half-truths. And then, I wake up this morning thinking, okay, all of the really crazy stuff for the week is done. And then we're debating the Civil Rights Act in 1964 and perhaps suggesting that businesses should be able to just openly treat people badly based on what they look like. And it's just, come on, man. Just give me like a whole week. Just 2 days in a row. 2 days in a row where we don't have to talk about crazy backward things being made into law or people running for office based on turning back the clock 50 years.
I will try to get you a Thursday off at some point in the next few weeks. Benjamin Jealous, President and CEO of the NAACP, somebody I've known for a long time and somebody I've always enjoyed talking to about these things. Thanks a lot, Ben. It's nice to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks, Richard.